Well, good evening. I just hope you can all hear me. As promised, tonight we're doing another Facebook Live on anxiety, stress, and food. The foods that we can eat can make quite a difference. Lots of people ask me about this when we do sessions. So, as usual, if you have any questions, do comment below. If you have any friends that would enjoy this information, please tag them in the comment section. And we'll just wait for a few more people to jump online. And we shall get started. And straight off the bat, we have Melanie and Gemma. Hi, Gemma. Hope you're all right. So yes, tonight's Facebook Live is all about food. Hi, Patricia. All about food, how it can affect anxiety and stress, and the foods that we need to avoid to keep those anxiety and stress levels way, way down. So again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, comment below. If you have any friends that would benefit from this, tag them below. And thanks as ever for all your questions and comments over the last couple of days and for last night. So yes, so food's really, really interesting. It's amazing with an awful lot of clients that people say to me, oh, food just doesn't cause me an issue. It's not an issue. But I say to them, don't take my word for it. I say, what I want you to do is to cut certain things out for 2 to 3 weeks and see how you feel. And usually people find they feel quite differently. But when they reintroduce those foods, they start to feel absolutely awful again. So to give you a good example, I had a client a while ago who wasn't doing too well with wheat and dairy. And I basically said, right, pack in the pizza, pack in the wheat and dairy for a couple of weeks. And it's not really bothering me. But when she went back onto it, she felt absolutely awful. And that's how people usually find out that they've got problems with these sort of things. So we'll crack on and start going through them. So we do know that basically our digestive system is really important to our health. Years ago, somebody came up with the idea of the anemic nervous system, which basically said that our mind is not in our heads, but it's actually down in our stomach. And we know that all the cortical connections in the body, all the nerves, everything connects through the stomach. And if the stomach's not working at full strength or something's giving it a problem, it causes major, major issues. We can also look at different types of medicine. Chinese, Western, Eastern philosophies have all believed for years that we have all these energy centers and certain things can make us feel a lot worse and an awful lot better. So I've got a list of the foods to avoid if you have anxiety. Don't worry, because I will do another live to tell you about all the things that you can eat, which are thousands and thousands more than the list that we've got. And we'll get started. So the very first one, guys, is artificial sweeteners. With every client I get in for anxiety and stress, I always say, pack in the artificial sweeteners. Now, these are found in loads of cheap, processed, crappy foods, to put it bluntly. So if we look at cordials, we look at fizzy drinks, we look at diet products, you know, anything that says low sugar, sugar-free, chewing gums, these things are really bad. And there's 2 reasons why they're so bad for us, and I'll tell you. The first one is artificial sweeteners are known to be vasoconstrictors, and this means they reduce your vessels, your blood vessels, and causes them to constrict. Now, that's very, very dangerous because that means that the blood that's going through there is restricted, it's reduced, so it pushes up your blood pressure, but it also means the blood that's needed for certain parts of the brain, the eyes, and everything else don't get enough oxygen, they don't get enough blood, and this is why we're seeing people now getting macular degeneration earlier and earlier, because the artificial sweeteners are taking away all the blood to the eyes. It's not just the eyes, it's the rest of the body as well, the mind. It's thought to contribute to Alzheimer's and dementia. Artificial sweeteners are not good. They are sold as a diet slimming product. They're sold as a health option, but there's so much evidence out there that they cause problems. One of the reasons is when we taste an artificial sweetener, we taste it very, very sweetly on our tongue. Our body then goes into overdrive, producing insulin and digestive enzymes and all sorts of other things, ready to get all the sugar, and the sugar never turns up. And then as a result, we then store our next meal up to 20 times more than if we'd had sugar anyway. So it increases our weight gain. And the problem is a lot of people who have poor diets have an awful lot of artificial sweeteners. As I said, it's in lots of junk food, it's in cheap processed food. But we do know that when it causes all of those things to happen in the body, it causes anxiety, or it makes anxiety an awful lot worse. It changes the brain chemistry. They're very acidic. And if you don't believe me, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out and buy a can of Diet Cola and a can of normal cola. And on the front of your car, I want you to get the one with the sweeteners, the diet one, and pour that across the bonnet. And then put the normal cola on the back of the car. And just leave it overnight. You don't have to leave it too long. And then I want you to send me pictures of which part of your car is shinier next morning. You'll probably find that the bonnet, you can see right down to the silver metal underneath, where the normal cola has just taken the surface paint off. This is so chemical, it's so chemically advanced, it is so acidic, it really messes up what's going on in your body. But we know it pushes up anxiety, it makes loads of problems. And I have so many clients who've come off them. And again, I've said, look, don't believe me, just come off it for 3 or 4 weeks, go back onto it and see how bad you feel. So it's really worth trying that. But sweeteners are so bad, they're in everything. So it's now time to start checking those labels. And when you get a minute, go onto Google and search for artificial sweeteners. Look for all the names. But even the bad ones, even the better ones like stevia, still cause problems in the body. And if you have anxiety or stress problems, you definitely want to leave them alone. It also messes up with the good bacteria in your gut. It seems to kill that off. So again, it's something that you want to get rid of, whether it's a bad sweetener or a good one. Move on to processed sugar as an alternative, although that's still not great. So the first one is artificial sweeteners. The second one is really related, and that's fizzy drinks, including these energy drinks. Okay, fizzy drinks, again, are usually neurotoxic. They change your brain chemistry, they change the pH level in your body. And most of these fizzy drinks, and I'm trying not to mention certain names, are very, very acidic and not good for the body at all. If you're gonna drink something, go for something like Fentimans or Fever Tree, because they're botanically brewed and they're much better on the body, in very small amounts though. But again, if you have anxiety, fizzy drinks just push your sugar levels to the roof, mess up your gut flora, and cause loads and loads of problems. So again, we need to cut those down. And it's including sort of these mineral waters that have got flavorings in them. They have sweeteners and loads of sugars as well. So really, we need to be drinking lots of either healthy teas or lots and lots of water. Remember that fizzy drinks are usually a diuretic. So for every one you drink, you'll pee out 2. And that's not good for the body, because when we're dehydrated, we know that pushes anxiety levels up as well. The other side of fizzy drinks is usually they're carbonated. And of course, when we drink, we want to take in water, we want to take in oxygen, but you're putting loads of CO2 in there. So that causes problems. The third one is refined sugar. Now, I've just told you to pack in artificial sweeteners. If you're going to have sweeteners or sugar, sugar is better. But refined sugar is a pain for the body as well. Again, it makes it too acidic. It causes loads of problems. It pushes up our blood pressure. So really, we want to get our sugars naturally from fruit. Fruit's absolutely fine. But if we're having loads of refined sugars, it's causing us problems. So again, we need to cut those down as much as we can. You usually find them in processed foods. And of course, because they're spiking the blood levels up, it causes problems. Coconut sugar is better, but again, it's a refined sugar. So what I'd suggest is, if you want something sweet, have a banana, have an apple, have an orange, not juice. I'll come to juice in a bit. It's better to have fruit. If you want to bake with stuff, I'd say overripe bananas are much better, but you can buy fruit sugar, you can buy date syrup, molasses, maple syrup. These are all better. They're processed, but they'll be better than having refined sugars, whether it's brown, white, coconut sugar, whatever it is. The next one is, sorry guys, caffeine. Caffeine, again, is really bad on the body, and it pushes those blood pressure levels up and the anxiety levels. Caffeine's really weird that when you drink a cup of coffee, your body jumps into activity to get it out. Again, it's very, very acidic. If it's non-organic, it's full of pesticides. I've heard claims of up to 500 pesticides per cup, which is an awful lot. So we want to try and keep the caffeine down. However, there are studies that shows a cup to maybe 2 a day helps with certain parts of the body and helps with liver function. So what I suggest is if you're going to have 1 cup a day, maybe 2, is do it in the morning, because caffeine has a half-life of 12 hours. That means whatever you drink at 9 o'clock in the morning, by 9 o'clock at night, half of it is still in your system. And if that's messing up your sleep patterns, if it's giving you insomnia, again, that's pushing your anxiety. And usually what I'd say, again, is just pack it in for 2 or 3 weeks, see how you feel as it settles down. You usually find your body detoxes and smells a bit as you get rid of it. But when you try it again, it makes such a difference and you notice how bad you feel. I packed in caffeine years ago, as in coffee on its own. I love the smell of it, but I just don't drink it. I do have a little bit of Fentimans Cola now and again, or I do like a bit of chocolate, but I do keep it down. But yes, it goes all the way up there to cause problems. So that's caffeine. Number 5 is a big one, and it's gluten. Now, gluten is a protein that's found in wheat, barley, and rye. It's natural. We're meant to have it in our diets. However, the bread that we have today isn't the same as it was 20, 30 years ago. They mix it up really quickly, and they don't leave it to ferment like they used to. So the gluten doesn't break down, and it's very hard for the body to digest. So one of the things to always try, and again, try it yourself, is packing the gluten for a couple of weeks, see how you feel, especially, if you're trying to lose weight. Packing in the gluten is quite a good thing, but beware, because a lot of gluten-free processed foods in the supermarkets are full of sugar and fat and everything else. So it's best trying to go into whole foods for doing that. But gluten is known for an awful lot of people to cause problems with the mind. It causes mind fog, it causes all sorts of issues, and especially with people who've got ADHD, Asperger's, or autism, find they do better on a low protein diet. So again, pulling the gluten out of your system can be a bit of a nightmare, but it's worth doing for a couple of weeks. That takes us on to number 6, which is wheat. Now, wheat. Again, wheat's natural. It's meant to be in our diet, but the wheat that we're having today, hi Helen, wheat is a funny one in that if we take 100 grams of white sugar, 100 grams of something like a Mars bar chocolate bar, 100 grams of white bread, and 100 grams of brown bread, when you eat those, they all spike your blood sugar levels up. And the best one to eat out of those, if it's regular bread from the supermarket, is the Mars bar. And that's just shocked a lot of you. The wheat, whether it's white bread or brown bread, will really push your sugar levels up, your blood sugar levels up like you wouldn't believe. And again, we know that pushes up anxiety. Now, brown bread, brown rice, whole rice, all this sort of stuff's always better than white. But brown bread and white bread normally push those blood sugar levels through the roof. In America, we see that they're eating so much of it now, pasta and pizza for breakfast, all sorts of weird things, that we're seeing kids with the pancreas burn out by the age of 14. Now, there's an easy way to get around this, and this is move on to proper spelt sourdough bread. If you can find a small artisan bakery that does spelt or sourdough bread, you'll find that the grains they use, the old-fashioned spelt grain, is much easier on the body. It's got a lot more nutrients. It's got much less gluten. And for a lot of people who are gluten intolerant, not for everyone, but for a lot of them, they can tolerate proper spelt sourdough bread. Now, the supermarket spelt sourdough bread, and there's a big argument, a big legal battle at this at the moment, is they're adding in lots of things like yeast, which shouldn't be there. They're adding lots of sugar and fat to preserve it, to get it a shelf life, and it's a pain. So what I really suggest is that you get proper, you find a little bakery. We're really lucky here in Northumberland, and then we've got a place called Food for Thought in Seaton Delaval, who will post it out, who make proper sourdough spelt loaves, and it's beautiful. It's much nicer than the regular sort of breads, trying not to mention the names again, that are loaded with sugar and fat and salt. It's much easier, and I find weight loss is much easier when you're eating the right breads. Again, for anxiety, you want to drop the chemically induced processed fat sugar type breads and move on to something healthier. It might be you cut it out altogether, or you find one of those little artisan bakers who are making the proper stuff, and there's plenty of it all over the UK. So move on to proper bread. Remember, blue wheat, which is what we have in the UK, is not good for us. It's got a shorter stalk, which usually means there's a bit of fungus in there. Pushes up Candida, it causes all sorts of problems, but it really pushes up those sugar levels to dangerous amounts. So we need to cut it right down, cut it out, or change it for something else. The next one, number 7, kind of on the same theme, is processed foods. Now, we eat so much processed foods in this country, it's absolutely crazy, but they're usually loaded with artificial colors, artificial sweeteners, artificial flavorings. We know that there was something in the news today about kids are reacting very badly behavior-wise with some of the colorings that are in processed foods and sweets, and this goes on all the time. So we need to get off those processed foods. We really need to be in a situation where we come home and we cook our own meals. And to be honest, I can cook a really good Indian meal or a nice veggie vegan meal very, very quickly in usually 20 minutes or less. It's just silly. It's just knowing how to do that. Nobody taught me how to cook. I just experimented when I went veggie. And it's very easy to make food from scratch, nice and cheaply. None of this processed rubbish, none of this salt and fat and everything else is there. It's just learning the skill to do that. But of course, people are busy. A lot of the NHS professionals I'm treating at the moment, they're working 12, 14 hours a day. They come home, they can't be asked to cook. It's hard for them. So they're either getting a takeaway, they're getting a pizza, they're getting something pre-made from the supermarket. And even if it's frozen, you know, a lot of these ready meals, when you cook them, they're still in the plastic packaging. That's leaking chemicals in there. And again, this doesn't help for anxiety. It pushes it all worse. So what I'd say to you is, if you're really wanting to beat your anxiety and your stress, you need to clean up your diet and get these processed foods out of there. It's so easy to do things. And one of the best things I'd suggest is get yourself one of these air fryers. You can make your own chips far nicer and much quicker using an air fryer. And it's cheaper than running a full oven. So there's lots of different ways of doing that. So processed foods, we want to cut out, get rid of those chemicals, and help to get the anxiety down. Number 8, sadly, this is one of my favorites, alcohol. Now, if you have anxiety, alcohol has a habit of making it worse, and different people react in different ways with alcohol. Different alcohols react in different ways. Sometimes people are okay with beer, but they're not with wine. Alcohol is a depressive. It messes up the brain chemistry. It changes the whole physiology in the body. The body takes ages to sort it out and get it out of the system. So we need to moderate it. And if you find it's making your anxiety worse, we need to cut it out. Once you've got your anxiety sorted, you might be able to sort of sneak it back in. But for a lot of people, it makes it a lot worse. I'm sure we've all at some point, and I can't remember for ages myself, woken up with a stinking hangover one morning, and you know how ratty, irritable, stop laughing, how irritable, how ratty, how bad-tempered we can be with just a little bit of alcohol and sometimes lots of it. But again, it's changing everything in the body. So again, we need to be careful with it. Moderation helps, but if your anxiety is bad, cut it out and introduce it and see how you feel. Number 9, dairy products. Sorry, folks, I know everybody's addicted to dairy and they love the cheese. It was one of the best things I ever did was giving it up. So there's a couple of reasons for this. And the first one is it contains morphine. Cow's milk contains something called casomorphine, which is really bad for us. It's there naturally in human breast milk. The whole point of it is when we feed a baby, the casomorphine relaxes the baby and helps it to get off to sleep nice and easy. Cow's milk, because baby cows aren't as small as baby humans, they're much bigger, and it's also there to make them grow a lot faster, contains a lot more casomorphine. It's a lot stronger. However, when we take milk and we dehydrate it down to cheese, we really increase the level of casomorphine percentage-wise, so it's a lot higher. And this is why a lot of people get addicted to cheese. When I used to run the local veggie group, lots of people who went vegetarian would replace meat with cheese. And then when they decided they wanted to go vegan, a few of them would get the shakes just for a couple of days while they came off the cheese. So casomorphine's there. It's not good for us. However, it's very addictive, and it's known to push up our anxiety levels. It really messes with the brain. I did have some other notes there. So it's very hard to digest. So again, it's messing up the gut flora. It's full of sugar. Lactose is a type of sugar that we need to get rid of. And also, it's not designed for humans. But we know it's a chemical concoction. It is drugs. So we need to cut it out. And again, so many clients find they are so much better when they cut out the dairy, and they also find it's a great way to lose weight. There's loads of alternatives today, guys. There's no trouble. There's loads of vegan cheeses that taste really nice in your supermarkets. All the big supermarkets have their own brand now. There's lots of new ones coming out, and milk is so much nicer. There's so many different things. There's soya milk, which we know is very protective, especially when it comes to cancer. Forget all those silly things people said about it's got too much estrogen. It actually helps to regulate the estrogen levels, and it's protective against cancer, people have told us. But you've also got soya milk, and there's different brands. There's about 20 or 30 different brands of soya milk, so if you don't like one, try another. But there's coconut milk, there's hazelnut milk, there's almond milk. One of my favorites is oat milk. Now, oat milk, again, it's about £1 for a carton. It's not expensive. What you can do is buy a big bag of oats, stick it in a blender with a load of water, let it soak for 5 minutes and whiz it up, and you've made it for pennies instead of the £1 that you normally pay. So milks, there's so many plant milks out there, and it's just finding the ones that you like. Milk is for baby cows. Yes, that's another daft thing, that you understand that all mammals, which we are, we kind of feed our kids milk, you know, breast milk, until we get to the point where we wean. So really about 3 or 4 with humans, we should stop doing that. But for some reason, we've continued to drink the stuff. The idea of going and grabbing a cow's udder and thinking I'm going to drink this is a bit weird to me, but it's kind of marketing has been very, very clever. But I guarantee if you cut the milk out, it usually helps with anxiety. Number 10, fried foods. The whole process of frying food might make it taste nice, but it kills off a lot of the nutrients. It puts loads of fat into your body. It causes cholesterol. It blocks up the arteries. It pushes up your blood pressure. But it also takes the nutrient out of your food, and it causes loads of bother with anxiety. It just seems to be that the more somebody eats fried food, which is another type of processed food, it makes things worse. So it's something to pack out. It also increases your blood pressure, and it destroys the nutrition. And I'm just trying to remember what it was. It also gets into the brain and the heart. And again, if we're stopping the blood from getting up there, it pushes the anxiety up. So again, trying to limit the fried food as much as we can is far better. We know that all sorts of processed foods and processed oils are causing a problem. Years ago, we thought that margarine was better than butter. They're both extremely bad. They're not good for us. You know, butter's got cows' hormones and all sorts of stuff in it. We know the processed spreads that we get are also bad. So what we can do is replace those with things like hummus. You can find loads of other spreads and stuff to go on there that doesn't contain dairy or oil, and it's much nicer, and it helps so much. 11, fruit juice. Now, people think, again, fruit juice is healthy. Again, that's marketing. The problem is we've taken the fruit, we've usually dehydrated it, we've then shipped it over to the UK, we add the water back to it, but most importantly, we've taken away the fiber. So again, that spikes up those sugar levels. If you want to make a juice fresh yourself at home, that is much better, but I'd usually suggest we need to look at smoothies. Now, smoothies are perfectly good, despite what the slimming clubs will tell you. You're putting the whole fruit in there, you're spinning it up, the fiber's still there, and quite often we're adding a bit of sort of plant milk or water to it. Smoothies are a great way of getting something sweet. If you do need something a bit sweet, one of the things you can do is just get a normal glass of tap water or filtered water and squeeze an orange into it. Now, okay, yes, you've taken some of the fiber out, but with the water, it helps. But normal fruit juice is very, very high. And do be aware that some of the concentrated ones we get in the UK, they've added more sugar back into it, processed sugar, than was there in the first place. So again, for anxiety, it pushes it up, it causes a lot of problems. And again, just try it 2-3 weeks, come back into it and see how you feel. 12 is salt. Now, we do need salt in our diet. It's very important. However, usually when you find natural salt, it will either be pink or it'll be gray. It's not the most appetizing looking salt. However, what we do is we take sea salt, we take rock salt, and to dry it, we blast it to over 1,000 degrees. It makes it very, very toxic. It pushes up the blood pressure. It irritates the stomach. Some people claim it causes cancer of the stomach, and it drives us mad. However, we've got to the point, you see so many people now are just putting salt in the food before they've even tasted it. So what I suggest is cut the salt way, way down. If you must have it, get yourself some nice Himalayan pink salt. But we know that still pushes up the blood pressure. You can get all the salt intake you need naturally from fruit and veg. So that keeps it right. But we know that salt pushes up our anxiety levels. Is there anything else that we can't have? 13, yes, sorry. Meat. Now, problem with some meat is, again, it's processed. So if we look at things like gammon and bacon and all this sort of thing, it's full of salt, it's been processed, it's quite often had chemicals on it. I remember a butcher years ago telling me that to keep the meat looking that lovely red color, they add this chemical to it that's actually got a warning on it that says it can cause problems with your heart. If you're still eating meat, what I suggest you do is stick to very lean meat, because meat quite often is high in fat, but avoid the processed meats like ham, bacon, gammon, all that type of stuff. Have a look online, find the healthier meats, but it needs to keep it down, because, again, certain meats cause problems. But I don't ever promote meat as being healthy, because we've seen so much evidence, but I'm not here to tell you to go veggie or vegan. Finally, 14 is 2 parts, and this is food intolerances. So we've gone through all the foods that cause problems, but food intolerances are really interesting, because some people are intolerant to certain things that are innocent looking foods. So the lady who does the intolerance testing for us is intolerant to cucumber and lettuce. And you think, why on earth does that cause a problem? But they cause her massive headaches, sort of migraine type things. Now, the rule is that if something is not being digested by your system properly, if it's putting you under a lot of stress, it causes problems. And as part of the program that we do, we get most people tested to see what causes problems for them. So it can be, there's very common ones, things such as wheat, dairy, caffeine. I'm trying to think what else has come up lately. Chocolate, sugar are usually the things that come up, but it can be innocent things like tomatoes, lettuce, all these sort of things. So it's worth getting tests done. The way that we do it, the service we use, they just need about a 2 centimeter sample of your hair. That goes off, it comes back in about a week, and it tells everything that might have a problem. However, the extra benefit of the service we use is that quite often it gives you a list of natural remedies or things that we need to do to put it right. So things like soy, if somebody's got an intolerance to soy, which is quite often because it's in everything, soy can be a problem, but usually by pulling it out of the diet and then slowly reintroducing it sort of 6 or 7 weeks later, it can make things an awful lot better. So again, if you're drinking a lot of plant milks, you want to mix them around. You could have soy one day and then almond the next and hazelnut, oat milk. If we constantly have a lot of the same food, we can become intolerant. And of course, one of the challenges with soy, despite it being very healthy and good for us, is that when you buy a lot of processed foods, especially breads, processed meats, soy flour is quite often in there. A lot of meat is kind of watered down, would you say, by using soy protein because people don't notice the difference. And it's crazy that soy's in everything. And it's the same with everything. Sugar's usually a hassle, wheat in almost everything. So again, just getting that test done can really clear the mind and get rid of the brain fog. The other thing to look at that's important, which isn't a food, but it's a result of the food, is something called Candida. Now, let's put it into context. In our lower intestine, we're supposed to have 80% good bacteria and 20% Candida. The Candida there is really important because it blooms up and it sorts out excess sugar in the body, and then it dies back down. However, one of the things that happens is that if the good bacteria is removed because of antibiotics, the Candida gets out of control and takes over. So we can lose the good bacteria by eating things with antibiotics in it, which can be meat, dairy, or taking medication. If we get anxious or stressed, that can mess the stomach up. And it's important to be putting in good probiotics on a daily basis, especially if your health isn't good. Now, I'm not talking about those silly little drinks in dairy in the supermarket. I'm talking about going to a good health food shop and getting a decent one, which usually costs about £8 for about 2 or 3 months supply. And that really helps. And then if we're eating the right foods, which we'll talk about in the next Facebook Live, we find that if you feed the good bacteria, they'll stay in the gut nicely, keep the Candida in check, and not have a problem. But when Candida gets out of control, it's almost like there's a little alien inside your stomach that can cause you to crave alcohol and sugar and sweets and crisps and all sorts of things. But again, it can make your anxiety an awful lot worse. It can, in effect, cause it. And again, with clients, we find that when we get the gut flora right, the anxiety levels come down. Now, this is the weird thing. is that when we deal with anxiety, if we sort the mental health side out, that really helps. However, if we're doing something with our diet that's making it worse, we're kind of pushing those anxiety levels back up. So by working with both, it works really nicely. Now, I'm not a nutritionist, but I work with some people who are, and that they are the people who do the allergy intolerance test for us, and they look at other things. And this is good to get the balance right. It's daft that we sort the mental health issue out, but if somebody's eating something that is causing those problems, if it's a food intolerance, if it's alcohol, stuff like this, we need to get it all in check if we're really committed to getting rid of that anxiety. You know, it really is about, it's up to you. Sometimes we can do all the things right mental health wise, but if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not looking after diet, we're not looking after our digestion, if we're not looking after self-care, then it causes lots and lots of problems. So the idea is by cutting those foods out and replacing them with something better, it really helps to get the anxiety under control. So let me see if I've got any more notes, because I've just forgotten. Yeah. So if that scares you, if I've just basically gone through everything that you're eating, you'll find that might be a bit of a shock to you, because a lot of those foods are things that people are eating now. What I'm saying to you is don't totally cut them out until you've seen the next video. However, what we'll talk about tomorrow is that there's over 100,000 foods on this planet that are good for you, easy to eat, nice and cheap, that we should have in our diets in the first place. But we've come to the point, because our lives are so busy, people love convenience food, the shops love selling convenience food, and really we need to move to nice, healthy, fresh foods as much as we can. So a couple of things that are going to happen now is that tomorrow I will go through a lot of the foods that we should be eating that will really help with anxiety and that we see really helps an awful lot of clients. I will share with you a free app, totally free of charge, and this app will do you the world of good, because first of all, it'll help you to track your diet, and you can see over the week and over the month and over the year everything that you've been eating on a good positive scale of all the healthy stuff. It'll easily help you to go out there when you're shopping, because it'll give you a list of the things that you need to get, and it'll also show you how to use these foods in lots of different dishes. Okay, it's not just a case of using it, we need to use it to cook, and there'll be cookery tips as well. It'll give you a lot more info on nutrition and help from some experts who know what they're talking about, with a load of links to videos and articles that will back up everything that I've just said. It'll also help people to lose weight, and most importantly, it'll help you to boost up your energy, to feel much better mentally, and help your body to work the right way, avoiding an awful lot of health issues. So I hope you've enjoyed that tonight. I don't know, have we got any questions?
Yes, Gemma says, what about goat's milk?
Goat's milk, again, it's an animal milk. It's got casein in it. It's got lactose. We're not baby goats, Gemma.
Also, let's have a look.
Okay, well, let me finish.
Would cause heartburn.
Right, there's a really good question. If you've got heartburn, it usually means that there's lots of food in the body, in the gut, that hasn't been digested. It means your gut is not digesting things properly. And it could be one that you're eating the wrong type of foods, or it could be you've not got enough digestive acids. One of the things that I'll talk about tomorrow is something called cider apple vinegar, which you can just take as a little tonic every day. It'll boost up your stomach. And I'll cover that. It's a good question. I'll cover that in more detail. But that's an easy thing to put right. I used to get severe heartburn and indigestion. I had that whole stomach exploration thing done years ago, but I found when I cut certain foods out, especially a lot of the ones we've just talked about, that can do it. So yes, moving on to better foods. The other thing is eating healthy foods will digest themselves and boost up your digestive power. So I'll discuss that tomorrow. Any other questions there, Mel? That was it. Okay. Well, if you have any more comments in the meantime or questions, do please put them in the comment section and I will address those tomorrow. Also, if you've got any friends who need help with help for anxiety, stress, depression, worry, negative thought, do tag them in the comments so that they can look at all of these. I will, as soon as we come off, post a link to our YouTube channel where we've got lots of videos now on anxiety, stress, depression, worry, negative, whatever you want to call it. Go on forever with that. And then also, if you wanted to work with me privately, I do take on 3 new clients per week. Before I'll be happy to do that is I do a strategy session just to check that you're committed. If you like to be considered for a free strategy call, and that's just basically 20-30 minutes where we talk through your issues, give you a roadmap to move forward, and then we'll decide if we want to work together or whether it's a good fit. That's totally free of charge. Just comment below strategy session and I will help you with that. So probably tomorrow night after 8 o'clock, we shall do another live all about all the good things to eat to help with anxiety, to keep you healthy and to quickly make some differences. So I shall put a message up about that, but I imagine it'll be 8:30 tomorrow. Have a great evening and we'll see you all very soon. Take care.